everybody. Welcome to the Talent War Group. So this is the command suite. We're excited to have you. So the Talent War Group is a collective of leaders sourced from building elite teams and managing the most important assets within your balance sheet, human capital. So what we have today is the command suite. So we're an organization of experts who share their lessons learned and insight on talent management, leadership, organizational development, and more. So we come up with the title because we've got a couple of commanders, former commanders from both the Army, the Air Force, the Marines, and then we've got a couple of retired sergeant majors. And you know, within the military organization, a commander and his sergeant major equal the command team. So as we've retired from our positions and are now in private sector, we thought what a unique opportunity to take some of the lessons we learned over a collective of, I don't know, if somebody did the math last time, I think it was like 120 years of military experience between the four of us. We're generally, we've got Craig and Mike with us, but today they're both out on other obligations. So we've got Cece, who's coming to us from the United States Marine Corps, and then we've got George Randall, who's one of the managing partners of the Talent War Group. So as always, we'll just start with a quick introduction. My name is Josh Johnson, retired Army Special Forces Sergeant Major, retired out of 1st Special Forces Group, did 32 years, just under 32 years in the military. My last role was the Group Master Trainer or the Advanced Skills Company Sergeant Major. Where I had the opportunity to help extend all those skills and capabilities all the way across 1st Special Forces Group. Now that I've retired, I'm the director of training for a company called West Shore Home. We're a home remodeling company based out of Pennsylvania with branches all up and down the East Coast and quickly moving coast to coast. That being said, let me introduce Ron Culpepper.
Yep. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back again. Like Josh has hit, you're getting free intelligence from this group. So I was born in Hawaii, born to a military family, was going through my education process in high school, joined the military at 17, knocked out a quick 30 years in the military, and did what Josh did. Retired, and now I work for a company doing training and development for the energy industry. Cece, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew Cece. I retired in 2012 as a Sergeant Major in the Marine Corps, and over my 26 years, again, vast experience in a lot of leadership. I was a drill instructor, I was an academy instructor, many deployments. Retired, went on to continue teaching at JROTC and then a military liaison. So instructing and putting the information out is exactly what that's up my realm and alley of experience. I want to get that education out. Born and raised in California, retired in Hawaii, and I plan on staying there.
And then lastly, I'd like to introduce George Randall. So, George is an experienced talent executive. He's also a veteran. He was a military policeman, and a lot of people dog him that, but I did 10 years in the Corps, so we'll keep that up, George. He's a coach, mentor, and leader known for selecting, building, and reorganizing teams to reach their full potential. George, is there anything you want to add?
No, I did con a commander into letting me be an infantry XO, so I was able to cross to the dark side for a period of time and serve. But yeah, I did 8 years, got out after 2 years of line command, jumped into the corporate sector, fell backwards into HR. And some 24 years later, with about the last 15 as an executive, it's been a wild ride. Over 80,000 hires, 2,500 executive hires. It's been a fun trip.
Yeah, I'm sure Ron's the same way, but I owe some credit to George for my current position as well. So yeah, he's been super helpful to a ton of veterans getting out. Hey, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about that. Today's episode is sponsored. Let's see, Talent War Group, a managing and consulting executive firm. The Ford School, who's sponsoring us today, and they're located in Benton, Tennessee. The Ford School is a residential treatment facility for teenage boys ages 13 to 17, 24 beds. They're there for short-term stays of up to 45 days, insurance reimbursable, or private pay program. You can find out more information on their website at www.fordschoolrtc.com or by calling their admissions line at 866-481-4403 or visiting them on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So if anyone has any experience with schools like that, I know, personally, I know a couple of people that have had some pretty good benefit out of that. My daughter worked at one as well, and the impact that she was able to have, across the kids that she worked with has been pretty influential. So that being said, we appreciate them sponsoring this section. And then, just as part of some of the admin, hey, the chat feature is open. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions that you have. We're always willing to stop what we're saying and answer legitimate questions for people that have that have requests. So today we want to talk about communication, right? So culture, climate, competition, how communication wins the day at your organization. So I'll just kick this off by saying, as a director of training, my job all day long is communicating, right? So whether it's to people in the courses that we're running, or it's to the organization in which I'm attempting to provide quality employees to, or if it's to the greater audience, our customer base, to figure out exactly how we can interact better with them. Everything's about communication. I think most of you will agree that it's pretty rare that you get to sit down and do something. There very little widgets are done by you at the end of the day, yet you're exhausted because you've been in conversations all day long. Is anybody else seeing that?
No, I've been that way my whole life. But then again, as you grow up as a skinny kid named George, you learn to talk, fight, and run. So it's no surprise that I've made my living communicating, be that to candidates, hiring managers, executives. It was a skill that's just very much served me well. And you're right, Josh. You're always communicating, and most times you can almost never communicate enough.
Yeah, 100% true. Just looking through a couple of, some of the references that we like to use around West Shore Home, requisite organization is just a massive one. We talked about, two-way managerial team meetings, and that's just the opportunity for a manager and their teams to have open communications, right? 3 kind of outlines or 3 kind of goals out of that, whether it's just a brainstorming, whether it's coming up with solutions or updating people on a program. It's always about open, early, and fast communications. Ron, how do you guys do it over at your office?
So you're talking about communication. It was funny. You take a look at our military careers. It was a constant, but it was almost standardized. Like George was talking about, you get into the private sector and it's even more important. If I take today's current events, those elephants in the rooms, the fears, turn on the news and you'll see everything negative. Afghanistan, COVID. Then you start coming to your workplace. You cannot over communicate enough. Not only what your company's doing, but talk to the people. The more you can put people at ease, and it goes right back into that culture and climate, that communication can create that family environment that gets people talking. You're more open and you're more effective.
Yeah, you know what? And I think people don't understand that in the military and in the civilian world, it's very similar in that if you're not communicating, nature abhors a vacuum. People in your teams will fill that vacuum with information that may or may not be correct, may or may not be true, may inhibit the mission, may provide risk for the task that you're performing. And so, the best leaders that I ever worked for, be that the military or the civilian world, were always communicating and doing it to the best of their ability and actually refining it to the point I even have a speech coach. And as they say, I had a speed limit birthday last weekend. So any place that still has a 55 speed limit, I had that wonderful birthday. My kids were quite helpful in pointing that out to me. But I always had, the people that could always communicate to me best, it removes uncertainty. It not just provides information, but it removes uncertainty. It helps people engage and start thinking ahead. So there's just so many levels and so many benefits of good communication. And the worst managers and leaders I work for, I was always playing a guessing game. I never knew. I never heard. And even when I asked questions, they weren't good at it. So of all of the skills that are important, communication, and not on Instagram, not on Facebook, not on text, but person to person, human being to human being is where it's at. And more things get done in great ways that way.
You brought up a super cool point there, right? That vacuum of knowledge creates speculation. Speculation always leads to uncertainty. Uncertainty starts leading to fear. And all of that can be eliminated just by having a conversation. Even if your answer is, hey, I'm not sure what's happening here, but we're on top of it. We're going to be okay. This is what I need you to focus on. Prioritize this, and this, and then I'll get you the answers. And just knowing that somebody's looking out to gather that information for them is hugely impactful across your workforce.
Yeah, and there's actually a side benefit, Josh, and I found this especially in the civilian world when I was leading teams in 30, 35 countries. And because I got in a habit and a rhythm, a cadence of communicating, not just what's happening, but what's on my mind, I'm the leader. It helps if they know what I'm thinking. Then they can act proactively. Then they can support my commander's intent. Then they can go engage that great intellectual horsepower that they have and go do things that are implied in my communication. And more importantly, one of the interesting things I found out is that if I wasn't communicating, they were like, well, there must be nothing, because he communicates so often. If George didn't tell us, probably doesn't mean squat. We'll go on with our day, meaning they trusted me to provide them at all times with the relevant information to do their jobs and to do their jobs well. And the better I could do that, the better results I got.
Yeah, absolutely.
George,
Please, CC, jump in.
yeah, with the so the leader's intent, the commander's intent is so vital to the mission. But along with that, the face-to-face communication, so you can read body language as well. When you're giving your intent, you want to see the expression if they do understand, or you get those go-getters who take half the intent and take off and want to complete the mission.
Yeah.
But the communication part wasn't very clear. They want to do well and they think they have your intent, but unless you communicate again with them face to face, you see their expression or their body language. If it's a individual that needs a little more attention, that's important as well. That'll help the mission. But knowing and understanding, and then as a leader, being able to communicate your intent with them, not have the information and good luck. Make sure it's very well thought out and addressed and delivered to your subordinates.
I like what you're talking there about, delivering that initial intent and then doing the follow up to it. Coming out of Sergeant Major Academy, one of the simple things that I remember there was they just kept hammering away at the 4 parts of communication: sender, receiver, message, and feedback. Right? And it does not matter how clearly you gave it if they don't understand it. And so when you initiate that feedback loop and try and figure out exactly, just verifying that they know exactly what you want them to be doing, it clarifies it. And then it's just checking in on your people. So it looks like we're starting to get a couple people coming in on some questions. So Kyle Biggs, how do you rank email as a communication tool? I feel it's become a crutch, and not having face-to-face. Yeah, absolutely. Not having face-to-face conversations.
You're talking to a guy who, at any given time, 200 inbound. I agree, it's a crutch. But let me reframe it a little bit. I've never treated email as a communication tool. I've treated it as an information tool. And one of the great tips that I give people that are climbing the civilian ladder is any time that you're going to try to impart tone or you sense tone in an email, you pick up the phone, you get on a Zoom, you do a face-to-face. Email doesn't convey tone. That's why it is not a communications tool. It should be an information sharing tool. Mind you, it might be, hey, did you know that this was going on? There's simple questions and stuff. But when there's real communication to be done, it's an information tool and nothing more. So when tone comes in, to your point, Josh, the receiver, how are they receiving it? Are they having a good day, a bad day? Did you put the wrong word in there? I mean, you can send people into orbit. So, I mean, it's up the rung from Twitter, which is the world's worst communication tool, up a step from Facebook, but and maybe slightly above text, but they're all information tools and shouldn't be viewed as a true communications tool if you're a leader.
Chance, anything you want to add?
I agree. I think there's definitely a time and place for that, and it does help. Today's technology helps the quick message back and forth. But back to the intent, the leader's intent, to get the full feel of it and get the body language and the understanding, the deer in the headlights look, you don't get that over text or email. So having the face-to-face, using the social media and the quick text for immediate responses, sure. But communications, effective communications, person to person.
Yeah, and we're lucky, right? Having the ability to Zoom or team rooms or any of those other things just opens up that capability. It's no longer having to communicate across time zones or across physical divides. You can have face-to-face in real time. As long as you're willing to be a little bit flexible on what your timelines are. But just no reason not to have just a quick conversation, get face-to-face, and then do a follow-up email that just wraps up a summary of what that conversation was.
What's interesting, because playing on what Cece said, the face-to-face, one of the reasons it's so important is, and there's a lot of people that listen and think we're only communicating within the continental United States. I mean, when I had 15, 20, 30 countries where I have people, seeing the face-to-face expression, you have to see that, because across geographical and cultural borders, people read emails, people hear messages a different way. And to your point, seeing them that they get it and then asking for a brief back, or, hey, tell me what you heard. I want to make sure that we both understand and can do what we need to do together. But especially as you cross borders and you get into new cultures, email, tone, sentence structure, and translation, really drives you towards the Zoom, the Teams meetings, Google Meet. It's face-to-face, always better.
But George, you hit on another point. I take communication and I tell leaders this: make sure you're listening. You can't capture that in a text. You can't capture it in an email. Josh hit it. Yep. Use it as a backup to reiterate everything in the discussion. CC hit it on body language, but you can't communicate or process information unless you're sending and receiving.
Oh, absolutely. And that's a skill in and of itself too, to be a great listener. So we get tough questions coming in, Josh.
Yeah, so we got a super interesting question, and I got to be honest, I don't know if I've ever heard an organization that wants to do this. So Sarah Robinson writes, how can mid-level management navigate being limited on what and how to communicate when upper management disagrees with frequent communication? Anybody have seen that?
Yeah, I have. But go ahead. You guys want to take a shot at it? I've seen it constantly.
So, George, I'm going to let you follow up on it. When you take a look at disagreements, even in the military, you'll have disagreements from higher, lower. Put it as risk. When you start outlining to hires up about the risk they're about ready to endure from their decisions or not listening, if they are not comprehending that something is going to happen, and probably not in a good way, it will start to change the dynamics. Don't go in like a bull in a china shop, because we all have bosses, but give them the risk. Make it their idea and you will succeed.
Yeah, and I wanted to draw out a specific point because I never know the context in which the writer, to the point that we made, we're not hearing what she asked us, and we don't know her situation. But there's a couple things I want to distinguish. First of all, as a leader, you should be communicating everything you possibly can about the mission, the task, the strategy ahead, the day events, the feedback. You need to be clear, authentic, and then listen for the brief back to make sure you're understood. Now, there are situations that all four of us, and you three far more than me, but on the executive level, where as a leader, I've had information that they wanted me to have so I could think strategically, but I couldn't push that information down as of yet. So I want to make sure that if they're forbidding or prohibiting conversations going down, is that the sensitivity of the information, that it's not releasable yet because things will happen if it's more broadly distributed. But I have, anytime that an executive says, no, let's tell them as little as possible, that goes in one ear, goes out the other. I trust my teams. We build, all four of us build high trust teams. We share, we over communicate, but there are some times where the positions of responsibility we've been in, we can't push that down at the current time.
Sure, I get that, right? There's always going to be, there's sensitivities when contracts or legalities or something like that. But that's, as leaders, you look at that and start identifying, okay, what are the things I need to put in motion for this to happen, and how can I do that while maintaining confidence?
Yeah.
So if you have the opportunity to go, okay, we're going to do, an acquisition in Timbuktu. Well, there's 1,000 things that you're going to have to do that are generic to every acquisition that's going to happen. So you can initiate movement on all of that. And just have it staged and ready to go until location gets announced. Boom! Now you start moving in that direction. So, when it comes to communicating, kind of across the board, look for those opportunities to get, as much information as feasible out there. But sometimes it's, hey, look, we've got something that's getting ready to happen. I can't go into the details on it, but this is what we need to be prepared for. This is what I'm asking you to execute on. And again, hey, I cannot give you full information, but I can give you as much as I can, and we can effectively execute based off of that, because it's no longer just this wild speculation. It's no longer just hanging out waiting for a trigger to happen, and then we got to get ready all of a sudden. So next question
is the leadership style that you already developed. Again, I think that even dates back to the leadership style that you have and you've communicated early on. If there are times, and we all know in combat and in other situations, you tell them what they need to know when they need to know it. But they trust you as a leader because you've displayed that all along in your leadership style, in and out of uniform in the civilian community as well. So knowing that as a leader, I'm going to communicate everything I can to you when I can. So if there ever is a time that I cannot communicate everything to you, there's a reason behind it. And they got to trust you as a leader that and on the back brief, that'll come in the back brief and the rest of the story, if you will. But the communication part of it, the personal part of it, the Zoom part of it, however you're going to get that information out is critical to the mission. And they'll understand that.
Yeah, that's it, creating that culture of trust within your organization, right? Up and down the chain of command. You're going to have bosses that have a higher level of knowledge, and they're going to give you what they can so you can initiate movement and be prepared for it. But if you've built trust with them and they've established trust with you, then you're going to be super comfortable in making those decisions without having full information, because you know that there's a plan in place and that your part to that plan is equally important, but for whatever reason, it's just not being fully published.
Yep.
So Anthony Procaccini comes to us with younger demographics. So younger demographic entering the workforce, how do you as leaders redirect the reliance on text messaging and subordinates or trainees? So, yeah.
Every time I was growing or building a team in the civilian world, the nature of recruiting talent acquisition is you're literally bringing in some people that are college grads, if that. And our big rule was make sure that you're conveying the information in person. And if they were texting between them, that's up to them how they were peer to peer. But somebody on the team to a manager or a lead or a supervisor, to me, text was absolutely not, unless it was Sunday night and they were saying, hey, George, something's blowing up on the other side of the world and we have a big problem and I need you to go get on your emails and let's Zoom about it. But I never fussed about how those people communicated. I tried to teach good communication, but that's as far as I went.
Thank you. Right there. Set the example. Have conversations. Have talk with people face to face. And when they reach out with a text, call them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You want to shut down a text stream? Make a phone call.
Yeah. So, and these are some good questions. I like these.
The other key to it is when you are phone call, Zoom, or face to face. The other is you have the full attention of either or, your leader or as a subordinate, as your boss. You know that you have their full attention. As a leader, of course, that's when you focus on your communicating part of it. So not when you reach someone, what else they're doing at the time. Are they paying attention? Are they getting the full message? So the leader and gentlemen, you all know when you remember there, shut off the computer, put your phone down, turn it off, and the full attention is focused on both of you. Communication goes both ways. So a lot to it. And I remember, again, I've been retired 10 years, and I talked to platoon sergeants and those guys now. They're like, yeah, well, I'm texting my Marines right now, telling them to be in formation. Again, the 1 or 2s or the Sunday nights, sure, the emergencies. Communication, the leader, you don't lead by computer, you don't lead by text.
I'm so grateful. When I was in, maybe I am a lot older, we did not have cell phones in the military. So I did have that distinct advantage.
There's something to say, though, for the fact that, text brings a layer of speed to communication that does make it appealing. So is it your best answer? No. Is it a tool that you can use to augment your communications? Absolutely. Is it prevalent in modern society? 100%. So there's that fine line between, hey, look, you and I need to have a conversation. Thanks for texting me. Let's make a phone call. And hey, don't text me because I'm an old guy and I'm not used to it. Because you're going to start losing credibility, with your organization at the same hand. So just, everything's a tool, and not everything's the right tool for the right job. But when it is the right tool, maximize it. When it's not, gently remind people of what the right communication tool needs to be.
Yep.
So let's see. Michelle wrote in and she says, love to have you touch on effective communications in regard to different levels of leadership and how it trickles down from the executive level and down. Specifically in regard to minimizing or eliminating or reducing redundant calls and meetings, and to get the same information across the levels without causing so many additional meetings. I want to adopt Michelle just for writing that.
You guys, I'm happy for you guys to take it. My big thing is I always shared everything that I possibly could with my subordinate leaders to allow them the maximum flexibility of their team schedules versus calling another all hands meeting or doing another blanket email. I made sure that I leveraged, what we call decentralized command, and allowed others to echo this message in the way that it pertained to their team and at a time that wasn't disruptive to what they were doing. If a company had an all hands, then I would let the team, funnel all the questions to me and I'll just tackle them all at one time. But the big thing to me is, you're right. There are some people in this world that think having a meeting is accomplishing a task, and it's only a time suck. And so any meeting that I can kill, I absolutely kill and do it as much as I can.
So George, you hit on it. I'd read that, and then we're talking about communication. I'd read that.
without having the full context, there's a breakdown in communication there.
Mm-hmm.
You hit it. If you have regular scheduled meetings, the information's getting out. The biggest thing I look at is where's the trust level at? Are there things from the top that are not getting down to the bottom? Is this why this churn's being created? But having schedules, the communication piece that goes into that, and then sending that information back up on where it's at, where you need to go, should help reduce that.
Yep.
And I think
So,
that goes straight back
you know,
to the
we've
company
all-
climate as well. The company climate and the effectiveness of your meeting. A long meeting doesn't mean it was a good meeting and a lot of information was passed. Direct and to the point. You're taking people's time away. You want them to accomplish the task that you're telling them right now, but the longer you drag out the meeting, the less productivity you're going to have. So the meetings need to be short and concise and communicated very clearly to your subordinate leaders or everyone that you can get in the meeting so they can get it done. There's nothing worse than having a meeting after a meeting after a meeting. Now you have tons of tasks to do and no time left because you're in meetings all day. Clear and concise and quick. It's not a time for camaraderie. There are other occasions for that and having fun and, you know, playing games during your meeting. That's, you build that camaraderie or you build that teamwork on a different occasion. That one, information to accomplish the mission.
And I think focused is key to that. What is your meeting about? Stay on that topic, stay within the realms of what that conversation needs to have, and then let people go act on it. When people take targets of opportunity to start putting out, you know, personal agendas or, you know, just, oh, by the way, I've got to do this as well. Can you help out with it? You know, if you've got a meeting of 10 people, an individual conversation between two people becomes the gigantic time suck of the day. So be willing to have those, hey man, let's get online, or, you know, let's talk about this right after the meeting, and then redirect it back to what the intent of the meeting was, and be willing to give people back some time in their day. If you schedule an hour-long meeting and it's done in 20 minutes, man, nobody's upset with you. Nobody's ever upset with you.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see, we got another question come in. Tips on how to be as efficient as you can when you communicate with coworkers, bosses, etc. Is there a certain methodology that you should follow?
Well, I have a lot of them. I'm going to let you guys go first, but dealing with executives, I have a lot. So I'm going to let you guys fire away on that one.
So
I like the.
I have two questions that I like to ask.
Okay.
I'll run on this one, CC, and then I'll hand it over to you. So I have two questions that I like to ask my people. Where are we at with this, and what do I owe you? They'll give you everything you need to know when you ask that, right? Because you've given them clear intent. They understand what their role is. They understand what their what their playing field is and their authorities and whatever assets they have available to them. But just that simple question of, hey, where are we at with this, puts them in the driver's seat. Now they have ownership of the problem. They have ownership of that project, and they're willing to lay it all out. And then at the end, what do I owe you? Because more than likely, they can handle problems at that level. And if they can't, it's 5% that they can't. And they'll spell out everything that they've done, everything that they want to accomplish, and then they're going to come to you with that, hey, this is outside my authority. What can you do for this small problem? And now you as a boss have time to handle everything else because they asked for this much instead of this much.
Yep.
CC?
The same, Josh. I just asked different questions. I asked them what the meeting was about and how does it pertain to you and I. And then we communicate what you and I, same thing. What can I do for you? What part do I play in that meeting? No matter if I was giving the meeting or if I was one of the subordinate leaders in the meeting, check with each one of them at different times when they have time. What was the meeting about and how does that pertain to you and I? And it gets them to do, they start thinking about, man, not only do I need to pay attention and continue on with my task, but I'm going to be questioned about it, or just not difference between micromanaging and asking them if they understand, again, back to the commander's intent, back to the leader's intent. How does that meeting pertain to you and I? So different way to ask, Josh, but same concept.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that because you put them in the driver's seat, right? you don't feel micromanaged if you're running that meeting. And so when your boss says, hey, where are we at with that? Or, hey, what is this? How does this pertain to you? You're now driving your own destiny. And again, you're presenting what your plan is, what your plan of action is, what your capabilities are. And then at the very end, hey, this is what I need from you, right? To me, I think that's the ideal strategy when it comes to like supervision throughout a product or throughout a project. Keeping up to it, letting them tell you the successes that they've had or the stucks that they may be experiencing, but then telling you their plan of action in order to get past it, right? So you've moved beyond supervising someone, you've moved to coaching them through a project, and that's the place that you want to be. Ron, how do you handle that?
You hit it. Lots of questions. Depending on where you are with the company, ask questions. If I were asking Mr. Randall how we're doing as a company or how I can improve, he's going to give me feedback. And then immediately I owe him feedback. When you come down to your coworkers, the two questions Josh asked: how are we doing? What can I do for you? You're talking to coworkers, how are we doing on our job as a team? How can we improve? And then you ask subordinates the same questions. How can we do better? Elicit that response. That is the communication game.
Yeah, I wanted to add something for those leaders that are climbing the career ladder or the career climbing wall, as it were. And I think we've all experienced this, because I knew when I was a young lieutenant and I had to brief a general, one of the first tips I was given was be good, be brief, be gone. Do not get up there and demonstrate your smarts. But one of the things when I was coaching subordinate leaders, and I try to do this on all my teams, is, folks, think of a company as a pyramid. And the higher you go up in that pyramid, who you're addressing in that pyramid, the less context you need to provide to that person. So as an example, if I'm I was at L2, so I'm one click behind the CHRO and I'm briefing the CEO. I don't need to give him full context of my world when I communicate. He is talking to 3,000 other people. I need to make the best use of that executive's time by giving them actionable information. I'm either there to impart information, to get an approval, or to have a decision made. I know what my purpose is when I go in, and I lower the context or expand the context depending on the level of individual that I'm talking with. Nothing impresses execs in your career than to say, I need 5 minutes, and you take 2 and you're out. Then the next time that you ask for that executive's time, they will always fit you in because they know you're respectful, you're a great communicator, you get to the point, low context, factual, bulleted information, and you're out of there. Most people that are climbing the career ladder make the mistake of doing high context. Let me tell you how good I am at my job. Let me tell you all the great things that we're doing. And the executive would love to listen to you, but they just don't have the time based on the number of people doing the same thing you're doing. So to answer that question, remember, thing is a pyramid. As they go up, less context, more bulleted, more to the point. Is it a decision? Is it information? What do you need? Be good, be brief, be gone.
Yeah, come with a brief explanation of the problem. Here's my solution. Do I have your approval?
That's it.
Let's see. We've got another question.
Thing I've seen is
please, CC.
Also once. Okay. Yeah, and as leaders move up and now they have a bigger scope of influence, they may not know all the departments as well as they knew their own, where they came from.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a huge point for them to, when now I have all these other departments, listen to them first before I try to lead each one of them. It's as simple as I use the football analogy. You can be the best linebacker in all the NFL, then you retire from that and go to coach. Because you're so good at playing, you might be the best coach in the world as well. Not always true. So you have to learn each department now and learn each individual and be able to change their perspective on the company by you showing them that, hey, this is a collective effort and we do need to listen to each other. And I do want to learn each department before I just lead you in the wrong direction. I micromanage, understanding each department and each subordinate leader within that department.
Okay, so we got another question coming in from Ricardo. I'm not even going to attempt your last name, sir. I apologize. The more credit you give up and down the chain, the more credit you receive. And if your team doesn't trust you, it's on you to build that relationship as a leader. That's what I learned while I was in the military life, and I've brought that into my professional life as well. If I understand what you're saying here, Ricardo, is give credit to those that the credit's due. Your boss knows that you're responsible for the actions of your team, but does your team know that you're giving the credit for what they're doing? Zero reason for you as a leader to ever be like, I did this, my team did this. Go, hey, I signed this down to CC and he knocked it out of the park. Here's the results of CC's actions. Boom. Now, number one, I've given credit to the actual action arm. I've explained to my boss that I've got an employee that's worth investing in because he can meet tasks or responsibilities, and I'm working towards whatever employee development plan that CC and I have come up with. Every time there's an opportunity to highlight what your people are doing, use it as a tool to move them in the direction that you guys have decided that they want to go to.
Changing I to we and me to us, simple leadership tools. I didn't do any of this. I didn't get to be a sergeant major on my own. We did this and we accomplished this mission, and we are going to, it was us. Taking out I and me in your daily conversations is a huge win in any situation.
Absolutely. So it looks like Kyle Briggs just wanted to give a quick thanks. Kyle asked a question earlier. Hey, thanks for providing the forum, and most importantly, thanks for the service to our country. Hey, Kyle, super appreciate you saying that. I think all of us over the last couple of weeks our emotions maybe a little bit closer to the surface than we'd like them to be with some of the events happening in the world, and just hearing somebody say that it really does mean a lot. So appreciate that. And then lastly, let's see, Nicholas King asked, George, who said that?
Well, let me give you some context. So at the time, the guy's name was Brigadier General Frank Miller. He was the Assistant Division Commander of 3 Corps at Fort Hood. And for whatever reason, a first lieutenant promotable, I was briefing the 3 Corps commander because the lieutenant colonel and 2 majors, God only knows what they were doing. But as they say, everybody has their day in the chute. And so it was mine. And he pulled me aside, fortunately. And I say this because, it was the one thing that I loved about the military, and that I know all of us try to be in our civilian worlds, as a coach and a mentor to those that we help them be better. And he just put his arm around my shoulder and he said, listen, you've got a suite of generals. Matter of fact, Josh, you'll remember, you guys should know the name Wesley Clark, if you remember. Oh, yeah. He was one of the people, the Rhodes Scholar. And so General Miller put his arm around me, said, George, be good, be brief, be gone. The longer you stay up there, the longer you're going to spin at the end of a hangman's noose. And so that was it. I got in, got out, and everybody thought I was a genius for just being short on time. So I've always carried that with me, and it's served me well with any executive that I've ever briefed. And they've always been appreciative. And if they want you to stay more, they will ask you questions and invite you to stay more.
So, the front half to that, George, and we've all seen this, rehearsals. Hey, that there's a briefing coming up. You're going to potentially have, 30 to 45 seconds in front of the CEO. Practice what you're going to say. Know your information, know your data, know your plan of action, get it out there, shut up, because there are people with bigger paychecks that are going to be talking on the backside of that conversation.
And I would even have murder boards and stuff like that. I'd have people, okay, fire the hardest question at me, try to stump me. And Josh, what a great point. Great rehearsals, because I would do that, and then people would throw questions at me, but so I wouldn't be shocked. I'd think of everything that the generals could possibly ask me, or a CEO could ask, and it just made me better and up to my game. I was so grateful for that very advice that you just said.
Even on PowerPoint, when you're using PowerPoint to brief people, that's advice I was received, similar to George's. If you're using a PowerPoint or any kind of media to get your point across, short and sweet, 1 or 2 words, the more you have on there, the more distracted it is. the more people are going to pick at that. So
Mhm.
bullets all you need. Get your information out. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide.
Yep. And by God, don't read to the people you're presenting to.
Or read to the board itself.
Yeah, we did have one presenter at one point who was a senior vice president. And he's reading off the slides, and the CEO said, by the way, English is my first language. I'm good. Thank you. And that kind of clarified reading off slides for the rest of the group for the rest of my tenure there.
Yeah, if you find yourself staring at the screen, you're a no-go at this station. Okay, so we're closing in at the end of our time. I'll just open it up. If anybody has any last-minute advice they want to give when it comes to communication.
Keep doing it. The more you do it, the better you get at it.
I know for me,
I think
and go ahead, CC, take it away, bud.
Thank you, George. Yeah, again, I think the biggest thing for me, and I learned the hard way, I was that guy that got half the information and took off, and messed up the commander's intent fully, not intentionally, but I just wanted to get the job done so bad. So that's what I got to hold people down. Stop, don't move. I'm not done. Let's communicate this. I need to get that look in your eyes. I got to get the warm fuzzy, as we say, to know that you've understood everything I just said, and we're on the same sheet of music. So sometimes, again, in communication, time is not always of the essence. We don't want to waste anyone's time, but understanding the complete mission is much more important to get across, and just have the information, you're gone, and go continue on with the mission. So the communication part took me years to learn it, but now it's effective. I notice it in the military and in the civilian community. Don't dismiss a meeting because you are overtime. We talked about short meetings, but if you have to go a little longer to communicate and get it across that the intent is out, then take a little longer to do it, but make sure that you prepare so you don't go over the meeting time limit. But the communication piece is critical. The correct information is passed, and the correct information is received. That's where it becomes critical.
Yeah. And the only other thing I would add is, when I said earlier, you learn to talk, fight, and run as a skinny kid named George, and that's if you want to have a job or date or both. The thing is for all of our listeners, you guys understand that we always try to get better at every craft. And over a year ago, even though I've been doing public speaking, I still got a speech coach, because there were always ways that I wanted to be the best communicator that I possibly could be. And so this person teaches how to communicate to executives, how to communicate to board. Just because you got 20 years of doing something doesn't mean you're necessarily doing it right. Look for people that can help you, because it's always about upping your game. If you ever think you're as good as you can be, and Josh, I love that phrase. I hadn't heard that in a long time. You are a no-go at this station. So always get better. Keep doing it.
Awesome. Hey, gentlemen, what a great way to spend a lunch, just talking with a bunch of leaders, trying to figure out how to open up communication within our organizations and to share it with anyone that bothered to listen. So I appreciate your guys' time. So, hey, anybody that joined us today, thanks for taking the time. If you like what you heard and you want to continue the conversation, connect with any of us on LinkedIn, and then you can follow the Talent War Group through YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Share our posts, share our sessions with your organization, any of your connections, your family, your friends. Honestly, everyone sitting in this room right here would be willing to talk to anyone that reached out. That's what old soldiers do. They just have war stories. So sometimes we're just looking for somebody new to tell the same story that we've told 1,000 times to. But if you're looking for ways to improve your team, yourself, or your organization, any of us are available to talk with you directly. Just reach out through the Talent War Group. And then lastly, check out thetalentwargroup.com to book any of us as speakers or consultants. With that, we appreciate your time. Have a good 15 minutes left in your lunch, and we'll see you at the next command suite.
Thank you, gentlemen. You guys are awesome.